Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how is it going?
Tony, it is truly outstanding. It is a lovely, rainy Thursday morning in Columbus, and that is the very best kind of morning.
It is. I took one dog out this morning, and I came back inside to take the other dog out. My wife was like, there's an umbrella right by the door, right? I know now. So,
well, that's what she's there for, to help you. It's like what my wife does for our kids. Like, well, you're 7, you can't function as an adult, so that's okay. That's what I'm here for. Like, that's what she's there for you.
exactly. And then if she lets me have Skittles for dinner, I can't wait. But so yeah. So Tom, let's get the show started because there's a lot of show to start. We talked to Ryan Day on Wednesday. That was the first time we talked to him since February or whatever, and got to preview spring camp. Talked to him for a whopping 40 minutes, which is a long time to talk to a coach. And I actually got to run like everybody got their questions in, and a few of us got extra questions in, so that was nice. And then on Friday we will talk to Kerry Combs and Kevin Wilson, and I believe Zach Harrison and Thayer Munford are the guys who'll be getting that day as well. So there's a ton going on. And then on Monday, we get Day again. It's going to be so annoying. Every Monday, here's the coach again. So they are practicing Monday and Wednesday and Fridays this year, this spring. And just boom, boom, boom. No like Saturday scrimmages or whatever until the final Saturday scrimmage of the spring game. And still no word on anything there in terms of attendance or anything like that, though Day did say that he hopes to be able to invite people to a practice even before then, which would be nice in the shoe. We'll see if that happens. But I guess let's first start off with Marcus Hooker. We knew was suspended indefinitely for OVI charge. Day said that he's still suspended. They'll let the legal process take its course, and then they'll go from there, and they'll make their decision when stuff like that comes down. So this is technically his second since he's been a Buckeye. He was like right out of high school, and prior to enrolling, he was busted in 2018 for an OVI. So that's not a good look, especially for somebody fighting for a position and somebody who kind of lost their position last year. So if not that this is ever something you want to do, but this is the last thing you want to do when you're a guy battling for a position at a position that used to be yours, no longer is, and now it's like, how can they? I'm sure the coaches are wondering how. We had trouble trusting you before, and now there's good luck.
Well, safety is such a position that's a trust position anyway, that of all the places on the field, that's probably near the top of we have to be able to trust you. And if we can't trust you, you can't play. I mean, maybe quarterback, maybe left tackle, but I mean, there's just not that many places in the field where it's like, you are the difference between disaster and not disaster. And we have to be able to trust you to do your job and do things the right way. And yeah, that is not a position you want to have the coaches going, I don't know if we can trust this guy. And, I mean, you want to try and separate the play on the field from the off-field concerns. But, every time a player gets in trouble, I'm reminded of the old Lee Tressel quote about, Jim Tressel always talked about how his dad's philosophy was basically, the severity of the punishment is in direct proportion to the quality of the backup. So there's a certain cynical portion of that. Now, I don't think that's necessarily exactly how things run now, but that, you always kind of wonder about that. And, if someone is kind of a more fringy player or not really an established starter, it's much easier to have a little, be a little tougher on them than it would be if Justin Fields had some issue last season during the season. Like, that's a very difficult, very different conversation and very different impact on the rest of the team than if, hey, the third string tight end did something, did the same thing. Like, that's the impact on the rest of the team is pretty significant. So, if you were a fringe guy, well, let's start that over. don't drink and drive.
Yes.
But especially if you're French, if you're a French
in a football context is
in
what
a
we're
football
speaking
context,
of.
yes. Yeah, your margin for error, your margin for potentially, having pretty severe consequences for the team is probably a little greater. You have a greater risk of having some pretty severe consequences if you are not someone who's right at the top of the depth chart.
And so this is the second time he's been suspended by the Ohio State football team. The first was in 2018. He was suspended for the first game of the season in which he redshirted. So I think this next punishment will probably be a little more severe. Tom, vaccinations are happening in Ohio. The state of Ohio, the governor announced on Tuesday that people 40 and older can begin scheduling on March 19th. People 16 and older can begin scheduling or have their parents schedule them March 29th. And it's that 16 and older number, which, of course, applies to the football program and all of the Ohio State athletes. And so Ryan Day is very excited about that. And I'm sure the players are as well. I asked him if the players will be required to have vaccinations, and he said no, it'll be up to each individual. They'll talk to their parents. He doesn't imagine why anybody wouldn't, but that's a personal decision on their end. And he said he's looking forward to getting his on Friday. Now, again, 40 and older is just eligible on Friday. So I don't know if somehow it's being sped to him on Friday or if that's when he's going to be able to schedule him. I bet it's being sped to them. I don't think the football program will have to wait too long. I wonder if it'll be brought to them or if they'll just have to get on the bus and go to like the shot, like regular folks. I'm guessing like everything, it'll be provided for them.
Well, I can tell you from my personal experience, if you're part of a group that is getting vaccinated all together, a large group, like they will bring it to you. Because my day job is qualified me in like January, but we couldn't actually get actually get the vaccine until very recently. I'm getting my second one on Friday, but they are coming to us. They are coming to my workplace and are doing it because everyone's in one spot. They can just get it all set up, get it knocked out real quick. It is a remarkably quick process. You are in the door, you walk in the door, you check in, and you get jabbed like 10 minutes later at the most. It's real quick, and then you sit there for 15 minutes and make sure you're not going to keel over, and then sometimes if you're lucky you get donuts, and then you leave. And so yeah, I would assume that this is all. They will have a day when they do it at the Woody Hayes and just do it quick, easy, in, out. It is not a very complicated process. So yeah, that'll be, I'm guessing that will be probably a largely something that a lot of people take advantage of, because my assumption is once people are more vaccinated, they probably stop getting Q-tips shoved up their noses every day. So I would assume that that's something that a lot of people are going to be like, yep, sign me up to not get my brain scraped every day again.
Yeah, I know. One of our buddies on the beat did theirs at the shot and was in and out in like 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. So pretty simple process. The hardest part, I guess, is just getting scheduled. Mm-hmm. And, we'll see how that goes. Ryan Day provided sort of injury updates, but not really, because I asked him, is anybody out? And he's like, well, everybody's going to be able to participate in their own special way. And I'm thinking, well, yes, the guys who can't participate end up walking around the field or, or maybe jogging if they're healthy enough. And so the tough thing about these question and answer sessions is like you only get so many spins at the wheel. And so they only wanted us to ask one question at the outset. And then if we're lucky, then you can come through a second one after everybody has asked one. So I ended up asking like 3 questions in my one question and couldn't get a
follow-up. Were they 3 quickies? Because I understand that those are allowed.
No, unfortunately. Well, they were all quick and they're all sort of related, but not really. But I did have to remind him of the third question I asked after he answered the first 2. But he said, everybody's going to be able to participate. And by that time, that was already my third question. So I couldn't follow up specifically with Court Williams and Cam Brown. Fortunately, somebody behind me, I think maybe Nathan Barrett of Cleveland.com, asked specifically about those guys. And Day said, there'll be no physical contact for those guys, but they will be maybe running towards the end, some individual drills towards the end of spring, which is basically what we've been saying all along. They won't be there for spring. But what I did find interesting is it may have been Nathan who also asked, where is Court? Like, what is he? And that's something we've been asking. And they said, well, we really like what we have for him we have something for him at safety, basically. Like, we like what we've got for him at safety. Now, what does that mean? Is that deep safety? Is that the strong safety slot corner slot safety spot? Is it the second safety, the nickel safety, or whatever? I don't know. But I said this on Mark Rogers' show yesterday. The fact that Ryan Day keeps speaking so highly or like so definitively about Court Williams, with Court Williams spending so little time on the practice field and none on the game field, like, I think people need to take notice of that. And when Ryan Day says we've got something for him at safety, that tells me that they think that he can handle it. And so it's unfortunate because he's one of the guys that I want to see most, because we've talked about, is he the bullet? Is he this? And so now again, of course, we will have to continue to wait, which I hate doing.
Well, yeah, there's just every year there's someone who is just a little dinged up in spring, and it's always someone who you're really interested to see because it's like, oh, this is the first time they'll really have a chance to make an impact. And it's like, oh, well, maybe in 6 months it'll be the first time they really have a chance to make an impact. And that's always a little frustrating. But I mean, to your point, when we don't have an opportunity to watch a ton of practices, or we don't have an opportunity to, we have seen him on the field in garbage time against Rutgers last year, for example, you kind of have to go based on what people are saying inside the program. And a lot of times that's real telling. Like, you can, you hear about guys coming up and it's like, you just wait. This guy's time is coming. Usually there's some, there's some stake with that sizzle. Sometimes those people end up getting quarterbacks who transfer to Miami and then transfer to UNLV or something like that. But, a lot of times that's something that you hear someone get talked about as, they talk about someone as a future captain, or, just wait till you see this guy in the field. And usually there's something pretty significant behind that. And there's a reason they're saying that. So I would assume that he's probably at least in the safety rotation this fall, at least. Maybe earns a starting job. I mean, I don't know exactly where everyone's going to fit in yet, and I think that might be reasonable because I don't know that they know where everyone's going to fit in yet. But, if the deep safeties this year were Lathan Ransom and Court Williams, and Josh Proctor was the strong safety, like that wouldn't shock me.
No, and I've been doing these spring positional depth chart previews, and I wanted to get them done before Friday's camp started, but we talked to Kerry Combs on Friday. So I'm like, I want to hear more about the safeties before I try to predict anything, because I have no idea. Like, is it too high? Is it one high? Is, whatever it is, I would like more information before I, try to figure this out and just throw a bunch of lies out onto the internet. At least let me have education before I, throw whatever out there.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to just throw something out there and then until you let the coaches just throw something out there. Like, do you want me to spoil the Kerry Combs? Like, well, we're gonna look at a lot of things. We're not sure. We're gonna have we don't want to just get into one. We don't just do one thing. That's oversimplification. And we got to look at a lot of guys. So I don't know how much more you'll hear more words. I don't know how much you'll know after that, but you'll hear more words before then.
Yeah, because when somebody asks, "What is Lathan Ransom?" is he the deep safety? Oh, we'll look at him there. We'll look at him, in the slot, and we'll look. And so,
and this is not like fall where this is like just clearly just obfuscation. Like, who's going to be your starting quarterback this week? Could be Justin Fields. Could be anyone. I don't know. Who's to say? Like, there are times when it's just like secrecy for secrecy's sake. This time of year, like, this is when they really don't know. They really are about to plug in guys in all sorts of different spots. You see, I mean, we watched the first practice of spring last year, and you see safeties playing slot corner, and you see different combinations of guys. You see freshmen running with the ones. It's like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? And it's like, the answer is it means they're moving other guys around a lot of different places. And I'm hopeful that we'll get to see a couple. I mean, I'm hopeful that Jerry and Mike don't bully Ryan Day, because Ryan Day wants us to be able to watch another practice. So I hope Jerry and Mike don't bully Ryan Day into keeping us out. I mean, that would be too bad. But yeah, my hope is that we'll get to see a couple, see a practice or maybe two, and then see the spring game, and then have a little bit better idea of a couple, because sometimes they're just trying something on one day and you never see it again. So if you get a couple different data points that like, hey, every time we've seen them, they've been running like a one high, like, okay, that's meaningful after a certain point. If you just see one practice, it's like, well, they were running the one high exclusively on the practice on Wednesday that we saw, like, and then we can try and draw as many conclusions from that as we want to. But the more we get to see, the more we can probably give you a better idea what to expect. But right now, I think they're going to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall this spring and sort of see what sticks. Because that's how it is a lot of springs. And I think especially this year when you've got as many questions as they do kind of at all levels of that defense.
Well, and I wonder, because when we saw the one practice last year that we always talk about is, we saw Court Williams back at deep safety. We saw Bryson Shaw in that slot role. Kerry Combs has talked about you start every corner outside and see if they can play it. And if they can't, then you move them inside. And I wonder if the same thing is true for the safeties. You start them deep and see what they can play. And if they can't, then you just continue to move them closer to the ball. And maybe that's why Court Williams was there when he came. When we talked to him in January that year, he's like, yeah, I really like the bullet roll. They're talking to me about bullet. And the first time we see him, he's the deep safety. And it's like, what the heck? Of course, the year before, all the talk was about bullet, and Brendan White was, one of the two deep safeties. And it's like, well, I guess spring is worthless for for us, but it's not, because I love it. And I do, just like seeing new things and seeing new players and maybe it's not the most accurate gauge of what the football team will look like, but it's better than not having any news and then trying to like pausing all of the Twitter videos that Ohio State will release and be like, is that okay? So that's Brian Watts with the ones, and I can't. Is that a 4 or is that a 9? and so there's always that. There's a Zapruder, film analysis that goes on. I think Day or Jerry Emig did say like they will try to release some footage of practice to the media on Friday, of which I would guess it would be pretty high resolution. So maybe the ability to analyze will be much easier than the 480i that we see on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah, when they want to release good, crisp, high resolution video, they have the ability to do that. And when they want to release photos that show like one assistant coach and then a bunch of blurry people 50 yards in the background that we get to just, I every time they do that, I look at my computer and I say enhance, and it doesn't work. And it's too bad. Hollywood has lied to me, and I feel extremely misled. But yeah, no, I'm hopeful that we'll have have a better, clearer look, because at this point of year, like what. There's not that much to hide. Like you're just trying a bunch of crap and it doesn't mean anything. And you're trying guys in positions that they'll never play during the year. So there's no, this is not Thursday of Michigan week. Like there will be, you're going to have the Big Ten Network probably in covering one of your whole practices at some point. Like the secrets of spring are going to get out, and that's okay because they don't really matter. So yeah, I am extremely hopeful that we'll get some good usable information from that, and then be able to hopefully take some stuff in person as well, because that makes a big difference when you can actually see it in person, and you're not just getting the selected edited highlights of something.
Let me ask you this, because you just said getting to see players at positions they'll never play. Immediately, I think I wouldn't mind seeing like Zach Harrison as a Wildcat quarterback. Also, let's see what Mayan Williams can do at nose tackle. Low man wins.
You said you mentioned trying to discern number 4 from number 9, and I'm like, is Zach Harrison running with the corners this year? I mean, that would be big news.
Played receiver in high school. I mean, he can do it.
It's true.
Track guy. You always want the track guys, like Jameson Williams on one side, Zach Harrison on the other. Couple of all-state guys.
I mean, you telling me they couldn't hit him for a jump ball in the end zone? I think that could absolutely work.
He's right up there with 6'7" James Hardy from Indiana.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, but any thoughts on somebody you would like to see play another position? I know it's not in any rundown that I've given you. I haven't given you a rundown.
I mean, I think we're gonna have to my answer to this is just going to be find and replace all of my old Robert Landers fantasies with Tyleik Williams. I would love to see Tyleik Williams as a fullback. I would like to see Tyleik Williams as a tailback. I'd like to see Tyleik Williams as a tight end. Run him in the slot. I don't care. Like, get him the ball. Get Tyleik Williams the ball in space. I think that's my biggest wish for this spring. We'll see if that works out.
And also maybe have like a couple of defensive tackles out wide to block for him.
Well, I mean, obviously that's just good strategic football. You don't need to be Ross Fulton to do that. Come
on. One of the guys Ryan Day also spoke about very highly was Zach Harrison, and which I think is music to everybody's ears who follows Ohio State and Buckeye fans, when he says he looks like a completely different guy than he did a year ago. And it's like, well, he looked like a guy last year too. So that's a pretty good sign of how he's taken a leadership role in the defensive end room, where there are three guys who are older than he is, and Tyreek Smith and Tyler Friday and Javonte Jean-Baptiste. So I think this is something where everybody has said, what's wrong with Zach Harrison? Meanwhile, I believe he led the defensive ends in sacks and was right there in tackles for loss. So what's wrong with him? Again, pandemic. That's what's wrong with so many people in terms of just football-wise development or not reaching their ultimate form. He was a sophomore last year, and so while that freshman year we figured he was right in line, it's like you can't always just assume somebody is going to be a Bosa or Chase Young or whatever. But now he needs to, Tom. I am assuming this year he becomes a Bosa or Chase Young, because even though I just said you can't assume, that's what I'm doing. Just to hear Ryan Day speak so glowingly about him, I assume when we talk to Larry Johnson, he probably will as well. And, Kerry Combs might say something about him as well. So just the fact that there is more coming out about him, and the winter workouts, we know we had intel that he was doing very well there. And so everything is following to where Zach Harrison, when I look at the defensive end room, I see Ohio State losing 3 defensive ends after this year, and he's one of them.
I think that's a real strong possibility, because this is third year. You're someone who has the athleticism, has the size, has the speed. If you have another year of another good year on tape, another good year of stats, like, okay, that's when you go be a top 10, top 15 NFL draft pick, and like that's what you do, and then it's next man up. And good news, Jack Sawyer's coming, so it'll be fine. But they have I think a lot of guys who are in contract years this year, because they had that's kind of the flip side of the coin of, hey, they had a bunch of guys come back who I think people weren't necessarily anticipating would come back. Like Tyreek Smith was someone that people, there was some talk Tyreek Smith could go. Thayer Munford, Chris Olave. I mean, there's a bunch of guys who are in that boat. But you have Garrett Wilson, which, I mean, we're at the point of year where I'm thinking these guys just signed, like, it feels like 6 months ago, and now this is already potentially this is their last year. Like Garrett Wilson, Zach Harrison. Like, how is that possible? But here we are. Time waits for no one. So yeah, so this is going to be a really big year for those guys. And you have seen, I think in the past we've seen guys who, everyone talks about like, hey, this is potentially a contract year. You see the guys who are like J.K. Dobbins. When it was J.K. Dobbins and this was his, contract year, like he did all the stuff that you would need him to do. Like he changed his diet, worked out like crazy, lost bad weight, gained good weight, and then ran for 2,000 yards. Like Justin Fields went vegan last year and, had a really great year. You have enough of those guys who are all in that year where it's like, with one good fall here, I could make myself $20-30 million. Like that's a pretty powerful motive for you to do all the little stuff. And, all we're seeing right now out of the workouts from the winter is like still photos, but like, yeah, Master Teague looks like he's been taking things pretty seriously. Like Zach Harrison looks like he's been taking things pretty seriously. So, that there's I think this is going to be a real interesting spring to watch. Although I don't know how much we're going to get to see a lot of these guys, because how much is Chris Olave really going to play this spring? Probably not a ton, because you want to get the younger guys some reps. But yeah, it is going to be an interesting year, and you've got a lot of guys with a lot on the line this fall.
Yeah, we'll get to see some of it on Twitter. You know where else you might get to see some of it?
I don't know.
I get to see something on Grey's Anatomy. It's totally stupid inside joke.
It's
and I didn't even use it properly, but
you didn't use it. Yeah, I believe I learned that by watching Grey's Anatomy. I believe that was the actual line. Poorly done. F-.
But I just wanted to throw something out there before you did. So that is done. Sorry to disrupt the show. Commercial break. All right, Tom, we're back. Let me go to the next topic here. Of somebody asked, "Hey, you guys played Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson so often last year. Is it even feasible that you could go back to your 6 wide receiver rotation this year?" And Ryan Day said, "Yes, it is feasible. If those guys can play, they will play." And so it's not a matter of them not wanting to play more of Julian Fleming or G. Scott or Jackson Smith and Jigba or whomever. It's just a matter of those guys need to be ready to play and game ready for that constant rotation. Now, I don't know that it will be a 6-man rotation because, again, it's really hard to take Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave off the field. But if you've got Julian Fleming and you've got all of these guys who are ready, it's also not good to keep them off the field. It's not good for recruiting. It's not good for December. It's not good for the fourth quarter. So there are plenty of reasons to play all of these guys, and it's just for me, it was good to hear that. Yeah, they want to play more guys, and so that is the plan. But it's up to those other receivers, and we can talk about, hey, yeah, they need to play more. I do think that they will be ready. I mean, this is now their. I almost said it's their second spring. It is not. It is their 1.1th spring. So there is that, but I do think I think they'll, as we've said, they'll have enough. And that's not even including Emeka Egbuka, who could make it 7. And I think asking maybe expecting a freshman to do it is a lot when that freshman isn't Garrett Wilson. I think he was the guy we knew that, yeah, he'll be in the rotation. And then we talked up Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he was in the rotation. We haven't seen anything from Emeka yet. Once we get to see a little bit of practice, we'll be able to speak pretty informatively and definitively about it, like we have been right about the others. But until we see him in practice, we can't give you the full details. But the fact that they do want to go to 6 again or more, however many are ready to play, is how many they said they will play.
And there's a million reasons why that makes a ton of sense. I mean, you want to keep your guys fresh. You want to have your next, if you, in case of injury, you want to have the next man up ready to go. There is the one-time transfer exception this year. You need to keep, I mean, I remember someone asking Tony Alfred, like, do you need to keep guys healthy and keep guys happy? And he's like, they need to keep me happy. But, with the one-time transfer, like maybe that power dynamic has shifted a little bit this year. So yeah, I do think you're going to see a pretty deep rotation. As deep as the rotation can be, I think you're going to see it. And, you have all that incredibly talented group of freshmen from last season, the 2 guys you mentioned, plus Julian Fleming, who are still here. And, all 3 of those guys were on the field during the national championship game in the second half. I mean, those are guys who did play some last year. Jackson Smith and Jigba had that one insane touchdown catch against Nebraska. Looked like he had a touchdown catch in the national championship game, and then it got reversed by replay. But you've got guys who are ready to contribute, and then you've seen young guys contribute. I mean, Chris Olave, his true freshman year, nothing, a little bit of something, boom, 2 touchdowns in the first half against Michigan. Garrett Wilson kind of was a little bit more, and then just kind of kept going and went from like, oh, he scored whatever the 5th touchdown against Nebraska in Lincoln to like, oh, he's just like one of their biggest playmakers immediately. So when you have those guys who are ready, they've shown they're willing to play them. And, Brian Hartline has to, start getting, rotating those guys in the field, because the downside of recruiting all of these like top 50 players is they're all expecting to play. So if they're ready to play, if they're ready to get on the field, you got to get them on the field. You got to get them reps. You got to get them, you got to get them some targets. And I think they are, they very clearly know that they have to do that this year. And I would expect them to substitute pretty liberally there. And, you have the second half of Kent State this year, or Akron this year. You have the second half of Tulsa this year. Like, you have opportunities for these guys to play that you didn't have last year. So that's going to help as well.
Just having non-conference games sounds so delightful. It's miserable and raining here, but you start talking about these non-conference games, and it's like you can just see rays of sunlight peering through the windows here. It just sounds nice. Along those lines of those 6 receivers, Ryan Day was asked, what battles are you most interested in? And of course, he said linebackers and secondary. But then he said, we need that second tight end. And that's something that we have talked about. You and I have talked about how important it is because they love the 12 personnel, the 1 back and the 2 tight ends. And right now their second tight end is either Cade Stover or Joe Royer or Sam Hart. And and that's, those guys have a combined 0 catches. And so there is some definite concern there because it is a position that maybe isn't going to be required to catch the ball, but can they block you? Asking a freshman or redshirt freshman to be your blocking tight end is when these guys are more receivers than blockers in high school anyway, the way they've been recruiting. And maybe that fits Cade Stover, who was defensive end linebacker type, when he was signed. So he's more of the physical guy, but just the fact that Day, I want to remind you people, we need a second tight end around here. And it's like, but you've got 15 receivers. Like, yes, but we need a second tight end. And so that will be he was speaking of Luke Farrell as one of the most underrated players they've had in his time here. And that people didn't appreciate what Luke Farrell was able to do for this team. And so now, yes, Jeremy Rucker is great and he can do everything. But you need that dirty guy. You need that second guy. And really Luke Farrell was the first guy. Jeremy Rucker was the second guy as the pass catcher. And then maybe the roles shifted it. So now you just need that gritty blocker who can also be a pass catcher when the time arrives. And so that's going to be one to watch this spring. As we've said, 20 times on the show, Cade Stover looked pretty good the one time we saw him last spring as a tight end. So, who knows what he looks like this year.
Yeah. Has anything changed in the last 12 and a half months?
Nothing.
I mean, I can't think of anything. So it should be, I'm expecting just exactly what we saw with sort of a little bit of natural progression, and it should be exactly what we see whenever we get to see him again. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the second tight end, I think, is something that, when Day said that, it was like, I think a lot of people are going to go, why do you care? Like, that's not anywhere near the top of the average Ohio State fan's concerns this spring. But if you have, I think Jeremy Ruckert, we kind of know what they have in Jeremy Ruckert, and it's pretty darn good, but they like that 12 personnel, as you said. Guys get hurt sometimes. You do need a guy. You cannot have to just, if Jeremy Ruckert gets hurt, have to take every personnel package with tight ends out of your playbook. Like, you can't do that. You have to have someone else who can play. And I would assume they would probably like to have 2 guys who can do that. Like, if Cade Stover and Joe Royer were both ready to go this fall, I'm guessing they would be thrilled with that. But that's, that's a guy who just was a true freshman last year, had a wonky true freshman year. You got Sam Hart coming in as a true freshman this year. And you've got Cade Stover, who, it's his 3rd year, but he's only, this is only his 2nd year as a tight end. He played on defense his 1st year. So it was like, he went from linebacker to defensive end to tight end. And it's like, there's you have not had the normal 2 years of development at tight end, that you would expect out of a 3rd year guy. So yeah, there are a lot of questions there. It feels like there are probably answers there, but getting those young guys to be up to speed with blocking, that's one of those things that will keep you off the field, whether you're a running back and it's blitz pickup, or wide receiver and can you run block as a wide receiver, or tight end and can you run block as a tight end? Like, that's the kind of stuff that can keep you off the field. And I don't have any sense right now for where any of those guys are with blocking, which makes this a very difficult conversation to sort of parse out.
Do Ohio State tight ends need to block? Is that a thing?
Do they need to do anything other than block, is I believe the question you meant to ask me. And the answer is unclear. Ask again later.
But they do so many different things out of that 12 personnel, running and throwing, and it can disguise so many things. They really do love it. Paris Johnson was a topic, and as you and I have expected, Day said he'll start out at guard, and if they need to move him to tackle, they can, obviously. And so that's where he will begin. Somebody else asked, "Hey, is there any thought to, it's your best 5, but if if maybe he's not the best guard, could you move Thayer Munford or, Nicholas Petit-Frere to guard? And he said, well, our guards and tackles are pretty interchangeable. So, yeah, there could be something like that where maybe Thayer Munford moves inside and then you put Paris Johnson outside. I don't expect that to happen. I expect your best tackle tandem since, as we said last week, Corey Stringer and Orlando Pace, you leave them where they are.
Yeah, and the other element of that is Thayer Munford came back to put another year of good tackle film together. So if you move him inside, then he doesn't get that another additional year of tackle film. And that's something that, go back to when you were playing the NCAA football video game and you broke promises to recruits. It's like, that ends up, coming back on you later on later on. If you tell a guy that, hey, you can come in and I'm assuming the conversation was, hey, yes, you're going to be the starting tackle again. You'll get another good year of tackle film. So if that was the conversation, then you really kind of want to follow through on that, because otherwise the next time you try to talk a guy into coming back, maybe they're not quite as receptive.
Like he'll say what probably happened. He's talking to Justin Fields, like, maybe you should come back. And Justin Fields is like, but you might put me at guard.
I want another good year of tackle film. Why are you
putting me at guard? So yeah, we'll see. I think the main question is Matt Jones and Harry Miller and how that dynamic works. But as we've said many times, the Ohio State offensive line should be fine. There's so many different guys, and the fact that they've already said, yes, Paris Johnson is starting at guard, that tells you that's where they see him and they expect that's where he will be. So just make friends with that. I know a lot of people, they want Paris Johnson to have 2 years at tackle because, gosh darn it, you signed him and you won this big recruiting battle. So let's, put him out there. But he can also be good at guard, and he's going to be a valuable contributor there as well.
Well, and you bring in this 5-star guy and you want to put him on the field somewhere. You want to get him out there, and you don't need to unseat someone who's going to be a 4-year starter to get him on the field. So get him on the field somewhere else. And he played guard last year. That was, this is not like a brand new thing that they're just like trying out on this crazy whim. Like, he played guard in the literal college football playoffs last year and looked fine. So this is probably going to work just fine for them this year. So I would, yes, I'm sure people would love to see 2 years of him at tackle, but if he plays guard and is, all Big Ten at guard this year and then kicks out to tackle next year and is All-American at tackle and then goes in the top 10 of the 2022 NFL draft, like 2023 NFL draft, I can do math. That's not a bad result. That is not a, that is not a one of the terrible what ifs of Ohio State football history. Like, you took a 5-star prospect, turned him into an All-American and a top 10 draft. Like, that's fine. That's actually a good outcome, even, because right now I think everyone has the the shiny 5-star view of him, and it's like, this time last year everyone had the shiny 5-star view of Harry Miller, and then Harry Miller misses a block and gets Justin Fields killed at Penn State, and it's all of a sudden like, oh, this guy's terrible. Like, well, you haven't seen Paris Johnson fail yet. I'm sure Paris Johnson is not going to grade out as a 100 in every single game. Like, that's just not how anyone, I'm sure Orlando Pace did not grade out as a 100% in every single one of his games in his entire career. You haven't seen him fail yet, so therefore you think he's absolutely obviously the best option. Let him grow. Let him get on the field. Let him, he's going to be right next to Thayer Munford, probably talking to Thayer Munford about recognizing blitzes and twists and stunts and all that stuff that Thayer Munford has spent the last 3 years dealing with. Get Paris Johnson up to speed, and then you slide him over, and then next year he probably is a All-American caliber offensive tackle, which he might not be this year.
Well, you should never willingly go into left tackle growing pains with new starters at quarterback. So if you can avoid that, which Ohio State can this year by keeping Thayer Munford there, it's like, well, we really wanted Paris to just learn on the job at left tackle. And yeah, sure, we've got new starting quarterbacks, but really, what is a blindside?
Yeah. That seems like something, especially when you don't have a ton of quarterback depth. Like, that seems like something you would want to kind of have as buttoned up as you can. Because you want those young quarterbacks to be able to keep their eyes downfield and not be like looking down like, oh, where's the rush coming from? Is someone about to miss a block? Like, is someone coming from my blind side? You want their eyes downfield, feeling confident, feeling like there will be a pocket around me. I can step into this throw. That makes life a little easier on those quarterbacks as they're starting to get up to speed. Because, again, they're not going to be perfect this year. That's just that is the world of a first-year starter. That's just how it is. So the fewer first-year starters you can have on your team, the better.
Yes, I do so enjoy flashing back to how we would warn people Justin Fields' first year. Now, he may not be great this game. He may look human in this one. So just be prepared. And then after the game, he's like, nope, didn't look human yet in this one.
Another 75%, 300-yard, 4 touchdown, no interception. But yeah, I mean, next week though,
against that UC defense, watch out.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it would be dangerous to put Thayer Munford at left guard, because imagine you're the quarterback dropping back and you're used to seeing 75 out here. Now he's like almost right in front of you. And you're like, oh shoot, the pass rush is on me. Like Thayer is getting beaten. Now here comes the defensive end. So there's just, some psychological things there that you'd have to worry about. And speaking of those quarterbacks, Ryan Day was asked, this is like, are you excited about it? Or because this is one thing where I'm like, you're bringing in a new quarterback. You have to find a new starter. There's probably some you're a little concerned, obviously, but he said there's excitement because whoever wins the job is going to be here next year as well, and possibly the year after that. And they invest so much time in creating and building and developing these starting quarterbacks. And you have Dwayne Haskins for 1 year. Justin Fields, you said you had him for basically a year and a half. So this next guy, there's excitement in that the work that you put in this year will also be rewarded next year, possibly the year after that. So there's some, I guess, just relief that all of the effort that you put in will continue to pay off down the road. So it's just interesting. And maybe that's why Kyle McCord isn't the worst answer in terms of the starting quarterback. I think maybe he's the most destructive around him, but you have a guy that is going to be there for 3 years now you can do something. Now, of course, it could, that's what Michigan thought they had with Chad Henne in 2004. He started for 4 years, but how did that go?
He started for 4 years and he got Michigan to better than 8-4. So I would say that was, historically speaking, a huge win for them. I mean, that was a pretty good team in 2006. Yes, and if he hadn't gotten hurt in 2007, that's probably a decent team in 2007. So, but yeah, no, that with as much flux as there is at the quarterback position right now, stability is this like incredible luxury. And, for someone like Day, who, we keep hearing from quarterbacks, like the system's really complicated. It's hard to pick up the first year. That second year is like, finally, this is when you spend a year kind of, struggling against the current to get up to speed and figure things out and be ready to run at least most of the offense that first year. And then that second year is when like that all that development pays off. And to not have guys there for 2 full years over and over and over again, that's that's not great. I think you go to let's frame this in terms of March Madness. Like there's always those teams with the 4th year guys, like the teams with the 4-year guys who like were slowly growing and building, and the roster's been together for a few years. Those teams are tough out in March. There is value in having veteran presence there. It's interesting to me though that you went with Chad Henne instead of JT Barrett in that example earlier.
Well, just in terms of a true freshman starter. That's what it was.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess I could have gone with Braxton Miller.
You could have.
But he was injured. He eventually didn't end his 4th year as a quarterback. So there's nothing wrong with talking about Chad Henne. I could have gone with JJ McCarthy.
You could have. Yeah.
That is going to be one fun one to watch. The whole JJ McCarthy, Kyle McCord thing. I don't know if we'll get to watch it this year because, again, Cave McNamara.
Didn't it just bring in a quarterback transfer?
Did they? Yes.
Yes.
The dude from Texas, Alan Bowman.
Yes, Alan Bowman,
who will start a game for Michigan this year, as we have decided.
Yeah,
that'll be fun as well, and maybe it'll be the game, which will be also fun. They also told the quarterbacks to explain, told them what's about to happen this spring. And it reminded me of what some of the issues were with the 2015 quarterback battle. Because he told these guys, don't look over your shoulder, don't look next to you, see what everybody else is doing. You can't be in a daily competition with the guys you're in a daily competition with. You can't view it like that. You can't view it like, today I need to be better than Jack Miller. You only can be just focus on yourself, worry about what you're doing, and that's how you grow. And it took me back to the JT Barrett versus Cardale Jones thing in 2015, where JT was trying to do what Cardale did. Cardale was trying to do what JT did. Neither of them ended up becoming the best version of themselves because they were trying to be somebody else. And of course, Cardale Jones wins the job. And then every time he throws an incompletion, he's looking to the sideline to see if JT Barrett is going to be coming in. And so you can't be worried about any of that. And at least in the spring, you're not concerned about being benched. And that was one of the things that they also said. It's like, you get to teach. This is his favorite time of year because you get to teach players without the looming game on Saturday. And so you can just focus on that and not worry about anything else. And so that's what he wants the quarterbacks to do. Just focus on themselves. And it's kind of like, golf. You're not competing against other golfers during practice, or you're just competing against the course. In practice, the quarterbacks are just competing against themselves, basically yourself, being the best version of you, putting it in the basket, doing the 1-inch drills perfectly, and hitting all of your passes, and just showing what you can do. And then they'll have all of this data, and they can measure it and say, okay, you were better. And that doesn't come about by trying to one up the person next to you. That just comes about by trying to reach your pinnacle.
But this is I think a coaching axiom that you've probably heard, which is you can't worry about the other guy, because if you're worrying about the other guy, you're not worrying about yourself, and all you have to do is get better. It doesn't matter who's better on March 27th. What matters is who's going to be better this summer, and you have to just focus on improving yourself. Because Ryan Day said, not just at the quarterback position, but basically everywhere, they have so many young guys, and they have guys who they essentially have two classes of freshmen because they didn't get a spring ball last year. So there's going to be a ton of focus on just the very rudimentary stuff, hand placement, just real fine points of technique. That's going to be true everywhere. You have to get all that little stuff done right, because it's does it matter if my elbow is twisted this way when I'm throwing or this way when I'm twisted? It's yes, it does matter, because that is ultimately going to be what makes you slightly more accurate down the line, lets you throw the ball a little harder down the line. And that is ultimately going to be what decides it. So, that this is not a completely new thing. We hear every time we talk to defensive linemen, they talk about hand placement, and, it's that, is that really the most important thing? It seems like, running quickly, no, that the little minute stuff, hand fight, that you see them working on hand fighting before every game. They do that during warm-ups every game, because it is a seemingly really minor thing that makes the difference between, do I get to the quarterback or do I not get to the quarterback, when that's, a quarter of a second of a difference can be the difference between a sack and a touchdown pass. You're working with very, very fine margins here. So you have to be paying attention to detail. And if you're worrying about the other guy, you're not paying attention to detail.
The hand fighting, you mentioned the difference. That was one of the things that Chris Ash brought in 2014, literally called the difference, where the first thing they do in practice is their hand placement and working with each other on where their hands are. And to refer to as the difference tells you that this is a very serious and important thing. And sometimes it's the difference between winning and losing.
Do you think that's a coincidence that yes. Worked out? That yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they probably just initially he wanted to call it the deference, but he misspelled it. It's what are you going to do? It's already on the legal notepad.
It's in ballpoint pen. Can't
change it
go back
now.
On this. Yeah.
I was disappointed. Brian Day was asked about the running backs, and he said that he doesn't really know how things are going to shake out. And it's dude, you're the head coach. All right, you should know how these things are going to go. Sure, you've got 6 running backs, but come on, pay attention to your team. Stop being this disassociative father. All right, be there and see what is going on. Don't tell me I don't know. Tell us exactly what is going to happen. I'm tired of the games and the charades and the lies, Tom.
There's probably a little bit of a political end to that where like, well, I can't tell you that I think this guy's going to win the starting job because then all the other guys may transfer right away. And I don't want that. So there's a small part of it that may be that, but also, I mean, absentee coach, I mean, I wouldn't say that, but you very clearly were just saying that. Is Ryan Day abdicating his responsibility as Ohio State's head coach? And I think the answer is, I mean, it sounds like you feel like the answer is yes.
Next topic, Tom. This is a very touchy subject. I don't want to, I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, even though all of the facts are there. And in that vein, he was asked about not in that vein at all. He was asked about the analysts.
Speaking of transitions,
asked about the analysts that he brought in, Paul Rhodes and Todd Fitch, and he did say, like, to have veterans in that role now, they are guys that can just put their arm around players and talk to them about whatever is going on, because I was going to say, because Day is off doing whatever, as we know. But in all seriousness, he said that they've got such a young coaching staff in general that he thought, and usually the analysts were young as well. And so now with such a young staff overall, he wanted to add some age to the analysts and brought in veterans. And he knows Fitch from working with him in the past. Didn't know Paul Rhodes, but had nothing but good things told to him from people who have, and Chip Kelly and
Jeff Hafley.
Yeah, Jeff Hafley, who obviously he respects very highly, both of those guys. So there was that, and I know Buckeye fans look at what Alabama does, and they're like, we need head coaches in these roles. Like, well, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It just depends on the overall makeup of your coaching roster. And right now, the coaching roster being pretty young, you bring in more veterans, and eventually it's gonna get younger when Larry Johnson decides to retire, and so maybe the veterans stay as analysts. But the thing is, they only stay for so long because these are all guys who are still trying to get paying gigs, as opposed to the $50,000 as an analyst or $35,000 as an analyst, while they're of course getting their buyouts or whatever from previous jobs. But it's not the best paying job in the world.
No, I mean, again, if someone wants to give me a buyout for $1 million or so, and then I will be happy to work for $35,000 a year on top of my $1 million buyout. That's fine. You can reach me at Tom Orr 4. I made that offer on the Morning Scoop this morning. I'll make it again here. My price has gone up from $700,000 to $1 million, but so you better get in quickly before it goes up again. There's absolutely something to the idea that having those veteran guys around makes a difference. I mean, there's a reason Nick Saban has been doing this for quite a while. Nick Saban is about as detail oriented as you possibly can be, and he has like very clearly found value in this. So that would tell me like, hey, there's probably some value in this. And there's positives and negatives to having older guys versus younger guys. Younger guys, you do get those up and comers. Like that's where you're generating the next level of your coaching tree. The older guys, like it's good to have them around now to help develop those younger guys, help those younger guys as they are sort of starting their next step in their, up that coaching ladder. The ability to develop assistant coaches after your first batch leaves, like that's the difference between head coaches that work and head coaches that don't. Because you go through and it's like, why did Urban Meyer not work at Florida after a while? It's like, well, you have Dan Mullen. Okay, then when Dan Mullen leaves, then you're replacing him with Steve Adazio. When Charlie Strong leaves, like then you're replacing. It's the first round of hires is not necessarily super difficult. It's the second round of hires that can sometimes come back and get you. And when Tom Herman left Ohio State, they did not replace Tom Herman with a Tom Herman level offensive coordinator, and then you had the 2015 season.
Too soon, Tom. You can't just drop that on people. Don't just start talking about the 2015 season out of the blue. That's a jerk move.
Didn't you just talk about the 2015 season 5 minutes ago?
I said you.
Oh, okay.
I was doing it as an analogy.
I apologize.
Don't apologize to me. Apologize to the listeners.
I'm sorry, listeners. Again, so the $1 million to @TomOr4.
Stop using this as your own personal platform. Tom, did you have anything else from Ryan Day before we make a couple of bold spring predictions?
I have some bold spring predictions, and unlike some head coaches, I'm willing to make some bold spring predictions about the running backs. So,
what? Go ahead then, and then because I also have a bold spring prediction about the running backs.
Travion Henderson is running with the ones at least in a rotation by the end of spring. I don't think he's necessarily the clear-cut number one running back, but I think he is, some combination of Master Teague, Mayan Williams, Travion Henderson with the ones by the end of spring.
My bold prediction, Master Teague receives the most accolades of anybody being talked about at running back. Is that really bold though?
Probably not. I mean, he obviously has put in the work, and there's a certain political element to that as well.
Yes, it's bold to me in the fact that so many people have written him off. So I'm going to be like, aha, just wait. There's going to be a lot of good talk about him and positive buzz about him from all of the coaches and things like that. And is it political? I guess we'll see in September.
Mm-hmm. Let's see who's getting 15 carries against Minnesota on September 2nd.
I'll go next. I've got one about the receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Julian Fleming takes a jump into the top 4 of the receivers. Now, I don't know, is Jackson Smith-Njigba, does he move into the top 3, and does Jameson Williams fall to number 5? I don't know, but I think I saw enough of Julian Fleming last year to where he was becoming a guy when Chris Olave was out and they went to him, he looked like he belonged. And while he may have been a little bit raw early on, I think he's continued to round into form. And so I expect the difficulty is that the fact that he played the same position as Chris Olave, that doesn't mean he will be this year or this spring. But I think he's one of those guys. I don't know how you quantify or say, yes, he's our number 4, because I'll never say that, which makes this pretty good that they cannot disprove it,
I like the fact that you're doing all these like sort of vaguely fudged, like, yeah, I mean, who said the most positive thing? Like, well, yes. Yeah, you have the unfalsifiable predictions, which is not, it's kind of the opposite of bold, but that's fine.
That's what I do. Those are my bold predictions. You know that.
All right, I'm going to do something that is far, far more bold and far more quantifiable and objective. Ready? 3 passing plays. There are 3 or more passing plays of 40-plus yards in the spring game. They had 7 all of last year, unless I missed one. Only 1 in the 2019 spring game. That was at like 98-yarder from Fields to Benjamin Victor down the right sideline. 2 in the 2018 spring game. You're going to see 3 or more of 40-plus in the spring game this year. And that I think is a testament to what I think of the wide receivers. And I think testament to the defensive backfield might be pretty young still, and you've still got some guys out.
If you set it at 3.5, that's a tough line. I would see 4 more than 3, I guess, just barely. So maybe I might go over on a 3.5 of 40 yards, but that's a lot. But again, the secondary is terrible.
Well, the secondary has a lot of questions that they have to get sorted out, and they don't have Cam Brown, and they don't have Court Williams. The secondary is going to be better in the fall because they're going to continue to grow. The secondary is also going to be better because you're getting a couple pieces back by this fall, probably. So yeah, I think the secondary is going to be, I think it is going to be panic city for Ohio State fans this spring watching the secondary, because they're already kind of primed to think this group might be terrible. And I think you're going to see some things that will try, be a little bit confirmation bias on that. Every time someone completes a pass, it's going to be, oh man, the world is ending. And they're not, I think it's absolutely an area of concern. Ryan Day basically said it was an area that, he's, concerned about. But you got to kind of let things play out in the fall. But before the fall comes the spring game, and that's when you'll have all the big plays.
And when I say they're terrible, I'm being facetious, but there is going to be, it's 4 quarters, and maybe they'll just be running the ball in the 4th quarter to do whatever. But again, you will have scholarship receivers going against walk-on corners. So keep that in mind as well in there. I will stick with the corners. Ryan Watts leaves spring as the other corner opposite Seven Banks. I think he's the potential. I just like the idea of a 6'3" corner, even though it's so rare that eventually you just assume he becomes a safety or he can't hack it at corner because there aren't many of those guys. So, but he did get to play more than any of the other freshmen last year. I originally had Tyreek Johnson in this spot, but if those two are even, then you go with the younger guy because Tyreek Johnson has had many opportunities. And so I think it's Ryan Watts and Seven Banks. And does that mean Ryan Watts is a starting cornerback this season? No, it doesn't, because we won't really know about the corners until Cam Brown, J.K. Johnson, Jordan, Hancock all have all of their opportunities. But I'll go with Watts leaving spring as the other corner this spring.
You told me just to put a few of these together, but that was on my long list that Ryan Watts is probably, at least in the 3 cornerback rotation coming out of spring at the very least, and probably, maybe the second corner. So yes, I think that's extremely fair, extremely reasonable.
Not bold.
It's bold. I mean, he was not someone who was, I don't know. This is not like predicting someone, a true freshman. Denzel Burke is going to come in and do it, but I think that's a prediction that has a pretty good chance of coming true. That if they split the teams up, Seven Banks is the number 1 corner on one team, and maybe Ryan Watts is the number 1 corner on the other team.
It would be nice to have a spring game draft again, but you got one. Go ahead, your turn.
Jack Sawyer works his way into the starting defensive end rotation by the end of spring. So I mean that's he's not necessarily first team.
Yeah.
But you've got the Tyreek Smith, Zach Harrison, Tyler Friday, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Jack Sawyer's maybe the 5th guy there, or, in the 6th guy there. Like he's in that rotation already by the end of spring, jumping some other guys who may have a year or two of seniority ahead of him.
Yeah. It seems like it's inevitable that he's in that 5-man rotation by, this season. So why wouldn't he be there in the spring? Not very bold, Tom. I'm very disappointed. I just want to end the show right now on that. Just like a complete dud, just a dud of a bold prediction.
I have 2 more. Don't hurt my feelings. Okay. How many more do you have, since we have done our typical amount of playing, which is 0?
I've got 3 more, which means I can go 1 more, and then I can follow you up with the other 2.
There you go.
This next, I'll stay on the defensive line. Now we're just going to tear each other apart with their. Do you call that bold? Ty Hamilton.
Wrong.
All right, go ahead. Your turn.
No, sorry, go ahead. No, I like where this is going. I'm high on Ty Hamilton as well. Go ahead.
He leaves spring as an Orr at nose tackle. Now, we don't even know if he's at nose tackle yet, or like he was last year. Does he become a 3 tech? But I have him as an Orr with Antoine Jackson at nose tackle by the end of spring. He's a second-year guy. He was in for spring last year. It didn't happen. But even back then, there was already talk about him. And I think that talk continues. So a ton of potential there. And I think that potential just grows and grows this spring, kind of like the flower. Flower tackle.
Sounds like a soft middle of the line. We may need to work on our branding here, but I like that. He's someone who, we talked earlier about, sometimes you just got to kind of listen. When you haven't seen it, you got to kind of listen to who the coaches are talking about. He's one of the guys the coaches have been talking about for quite a while. And yes, he didn't get the normal first year of spring camp and all that kind of stuff. As the younger brother of Devon Hamilton, he's been around Larry Johnson a lot longer than most of the other guys on the team who are, a year or 2 around him in terms of amount of years on campus actually as players. So I think he probably has a little bit of a head start just in terms of like, do you think Devon Hamilton maybe mentioned some technique stuff to Ty Hamilton? Like, I'm guessing that may have come up at some point. Like, he's been around the facility. He's gotten to watch practice. I mean, all of this stuff matters. Like, it's not, this is not solely going to determine it, but it's like, it's just a little bit more of a head start on some of the other guys. And I don't, Tyleik Williams, I think I'm super excited to see Tyleik Williams, but I don't know that you're going to see a true freshman there. Like, that may take a year of development to really get him to the point where he's in that, ready to go. And there's no one else there outside of Antoine Jackson that I'm like super, super blown away with that I think absolutely like this guy's the next Tommy Togi guy. Like, I mean, they have guys there, but yeah, I think there's a pretty good possibility there with Ty Hamilton.
What do you got?
All right, more than 5 players will enter who are currently on the roster will enter the transfer portal during or after spring ball. And normally it's a couple guys, 2, 3, something like that. More than 5 this year because you have the one-time transfer exception, and guys who are hey, I was a top 100 guy, and I've been here 2 years, I've been here 3 years. I'm not starting. I'm not super close. I'm not going to start this year. Do I want to wait another year, or can I go play for Greg Schiano at Rutgers and start this year? Like, can I go play for hey, this is my 4th year. This is my 5th year. I don't think I'm going to get to I don't think I'm going to get the ball. Maybe I'll go play for Kent State and go be a superstar in the MAC. So with the one-time transfer exception and not having to sit out a year. And that's not just an Ohio State thing. I think that's an everywhere thing. I think you're going to have good players at Central Michigan who are like, yeah, I'm too good for this program. I'm going to go play in the Big Ten. And you're going to have guys in the Big Ten who are like, I don't want to sit another year. I'm going to go play in the MAC or play for a lower level Big Ten team or whatever. So, more than 5 guys. And honestly, it wouldn't shock me if it was like 8, 9 guys for just about every program in the country.
I'll need you to go ahead and name the players, Tom.
We don't do that. Yes, we don't. Here's our longstanding editorial philosophy. We don't speculate on transfers until they happen. The only exception was Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow basically openly talked about the fact that he was thinking about transferring. So therefore, we felt compelled, felt okay with talking about it. But yes, we don't want to talk about specific names. You can, I'm sure, as I was talking, you could probably plug specific names onto some of those categories of people, but we're not going to put specific names on them, at least for now.
Howard.
It wasn't very bold of me, was it? Polite, yes. Bold, no.
No. If you think about it in like barbecue sauce terms, nobody wants the polite sauce. What do you got in a Kansas City polite? No such thing. We want bold.
I don't know what it is about barbecue sauce, but it's like the whole like hot sauce and barbecue sauce. It's just like the names of the sauces. Like you go down the barbecue sauce aisle or the hot sauce aisle at the grocery store or whatever, or you look at one of those like hot sauce companies that ships you different hot sauces, and it's like the names are always just like we can't differentiate it on anything other than like crazy, maybe profane names. Like, all right, good. That I don't think I want fire coming out of there, but okay, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know who you're marketing this to, but yeah.
It's all like, basically it's like, we will do violence to you. That's what the label says. Like, I don't know.
Sock full of doorknobs hot sauce. Like, all right, I guess. I don't know. Maybe.
Prison shiv Tabasco. No, I don't know. It's not for me. Okay, Tom, go ahead.
No, question. Did you brew your hot sauce in an actual prison toilet? If so, that's fine. If not, I have some questions.
You have to, duh. This show, man, I'll tell you what.
It's only going to go downhill from here because I have one more and you're going to hate it. So I can't wait.
Oh, okay. Here's my next one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got 2 left, so I'll go. Let's see, which one do I want to do right now? Let's go with Cade Stover ends up being a star this spring. Star of the offense this spring as the second tight end. Leaves no doubt that they will be okay at that position. We know he played offense in high school, played defense in high school, but was also very, talented running back, made plays, will bring that kind of playmaking ability to the second tight end role at Ohio State, which is like, I don't know, being like a third tenor singing, just that only hums, like does jingles. But the talent is there, and he will be able to then to help take over the spot in 2022 when Jeremy Ruckert leaves. So Cade Stover leaves this spring with very little doubts that they have a second tight end at Ohio State. Bold, not bold.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's okay. I mean, I can see it. It's I assume that basically means he has clearly won the second tight end job, and they're very comfortable with it. So yeah, I mean, I think that's reasonable, and that's that's somewhat bold. I get just based on the fact that we haven't really seen a whole heck of a lot to make any kind of a judgment on. Yeah, exactly. So
we have no idea.
Yeah. All right. I'll give you a thumbs up on that one. That's fine.
Now make me angry.
The Jesse Mirko era is a golden age for terrible Australian accents on this show, mate. Bold enough for you?
No, he's Australian. Of course he's going to be awesome.
I just said it was a golden era for terrible Australian accents on this show. I didn't say anything about his on-field.
That's not bold either, because it's true. Like, because we didn't have the show back when Cameron Johnston was punting.
It's true.
So all you have said here is fact.
So, I mean, I guess it's correct. So, point there, I guess.
Look, I'm not going to be upset because I do enjoy the Australian accent. So I can't get upset. I can't get mad because you do it on demand. And so that's what's great about it. And it could be about anything. Gosh, it should have been about the hot sauces though.
I feel like I need to start looking up more Australian phrases, because it's like,
no, you don't, not at all. just stick with the hits, man.
Crikey.
Yes. Crikey, I learned that from watching Grey's Anatomy. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why they need to practice outside, because you're not going to get, this is almost a serious thing with the punting inside the whack. So many of those punts just end up in the rafters because, Woody Hayes didn't build it high enough. He's not much of an architect. He's a good coach, sure. But the rafters catch a lot of those punts. And so it's always funny while they're doing punt drills, like the punt goes up, and then as it gets caught in the rafters, a coach standing next to the punt returner just tosses the punt returner a ball, like, here, go. And so, but with an Australian, he could probably, like, I'm going to aim through the rafters, or, all of these different spin kicks and low lying kicks. And so I'm sure if anybody could do it, an Australian can.
Absolutely. I mean, if we know anything about punting, and having been lifelong Big Ten residents,
boy howdy
do we. It is that Australians are undefeated in punting. Yes.
I still love the fact that one of the first things Jim Tressel did when he became Ohio State's head coach was had like a scientist come in to measure the wind directions in Ohio Stadium to help with his punting decisions and how and where to punt.
Yeah, but if you had to explain the Jim Tressel era and the offensive aggressiveness, measured the wind directions, didn't look at should we go for it on 4th and 1? Like, no, let's just talk about the wind directions. All right, I mean it worked out. So he's won more games as Ohio State's head coach than I have, so I can't really criticize. But
produced a Ray Guy Award winner. Should have produced 2. Andy Groom got robbed. But I do wonder, like, as he's having that scientist do the wins, and he's like, Coach, I've got a guy who's in sports analytics, and he said, no, just do your win there.
Stay in your lane.
Exactly.
Stay in your lane, Windy.
Perfect. My last one's Craig Young leaves spring as a defensive star, like Darren Lee type buzz, and playing a very similar Sam position, can do a lot, wins the job, or at least leaves spring with the job, and as a versatile guy can do a lot of different things. Maybe clouds the situation with the bullet there, and is one of your talks of camp. That's where I'm going. Defensively, one of the big names to know, Craig Young, explodes on the scene and in fact, they changes it. Basically, it's Craig Bold Young is how they start referring to him now. Bold.
That's related to another one that I had on my list that I ended up not going with, but one of the 4th year linebackers who everyone is just kind of like penciling in for the starting lineup isn't a starter, doesn't end up leaving spring as a starter. And Craig Young was the person who I was thinking like might steal one of those jobs. So yes, 2 thumbs up, enthusiastic endorsement of this prediction, which, I think that's sufficiently bold, but he fits the mold of the kind of guy who would, like, hey, this guy's real fast. Hey, this guy's really athletic. He's been on, he's been playing enough now that he's kind of probably got up to speed on the finer points of the defense. And with as much as things are in flux, like you might, having been around for 4 years doesn't necessarily mean that this is not necessarily going to be the same defense they've been running the last 4 years. So that may make that as, more, even more potentially true than it might otherwise be. But yeah, I will approve that prediction.
Great job latching on to my bold prediction. Good on you. That'll do it, Tom. Do you have anything else before we go?
No, I think we're good. We've gone, an hour and 15 minutes or something after we said we'll knock this out in 40 minutes or so. So we're right on schedule. We are running a Jim Tressel hurry up offense of a podcast here. So
everybody huddle.
Yep.
Huddle up. Let's go. Get it. Bring it in.
I'm not sure if I can finish. I got to check the wind first, but
I did not get to listen to Thursday's morning scoop yet. Who did you have on? You said
Thursday's morning scoop. I had on Kirk Barton to talk about. He is a former OSU captain and All-American from BuckeyeScoop.com. He is. I'd like to have him on every time there's sort of a new season. Hey, winter workouts are starting. Hey, spring football starting. Like to have him on to provide the kind of player's perspective on what does this mean? Why is this an important time? Share some stories on, what was his first fall camp like or first spring camp like. I did that again. I did that on the show this morning and couldn't remember what time of year it was. So everything's going great. Thanks for asking. But yeah, had him on to talk about spring camp and guys he's watching this year and a little bit in more detail on the transfer portal stuff and why this is, how they're going to have to kind of balance things this spring to try and keep, not have a bunch of guys get upset and hit the road because they have the option to do so without sitting out a year. So a lot of fun stuff with him on Thursday. Kirk, all the Kirk shows always are very, very popular ones. So I think people will enjoy that one.
What you got coming Friday?
I am having on Danny Vanatsky, walk-on quarterback for Ohio State, who just announced he was hanging him up. Looking forward to talking to him. I'm recording that one a little bit later, but looking forward to talking to him about his career. I want to find out was there a play where hey, on this one, I had this one shining moment where I just torched Jeff Okudah in practice. I want to hear those stories. Just maybe a little bit more about what was last season really like for these guys, how different was last season from a normal year, how stressful and annoying was last season from a normal year, and just kind of what is it like to be a walk-on? Because that's I think we talk to the scholarship guys all the time, and I think everyone has a pretty good sense for what life is like for Justin Fields, but what is life like for the guy who's still paying his own way and playing football and what is it like when you see Chase Young coming after you in practice? Oh no, I've never been chased by a Kodiak bear, but I would imagine the sensation in your midbrain is oh no,
Coaches hate it when I play dead.
Now
don't run.
Is he the one that you can scare away with bells? No. Oh no. Do you have bear spray in your hip pocket? No. Okay.
Yeah, they frown on that. That'll be cool. That's I'm looking forward to that one. For people who are hey, why aren't you guys talking about basketball? We did that on Tuesday. We previewed the NCAA tournament run for the Buckeyes. So go ahead, go listen to that one if you want that. We know tournament starts tomorrow. We're all very excited. We are human beings after all.
Yes, we had a big bracket fill out party in my house last night, so I'm all set for the Buckeye Scoop bracket contest. I think that's probably on our Ask the Insiders board, yes. But I'm sure we've I think that is worth doing. That'll be a fun. Just fill out one bracket, man. Don't be the guy with 17 brackets. But yes,
I think we finally did limit it to 5. But yeah, I only do one.
Yes, fill out your bracket, and it'll be all good fun. And I'm sure we'll a week from now, one of us will have 12 of the 32 first round games correct, and we'll be able to mock each other, and that's great. That's what we're all here for. That's what March is really all about.
And we did get to do it last year, so I'm telling everybody's up the mocking. You didn't get to do it last year. Get it out of your system.
I have 23 months worth of shade built up here, and man, I cannot wait to just fire hose it all over the place. It's gonna be great.
By the end of it, you'll be the most hated person on the beat, and
still
even more so. But that's not true, Tom. I'm sure there's somebody. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's somebody.
Yes, you can. You just can't say it.
All right, then. That'll do it. thank you all for listening to both shows this week, or just this one this time. So by the time we talk to you guys next week, we'll have talked to a bunch of coaches again, including Ryan Day. So football will have gone on. 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament will have occurred as well. So there should be plenty of stuff to talk about next week. So look forward to that, and we will talk to you then.